அனைவரும் தியானிக்கலாம். ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरविंदाय। ओम नमो नमः मीरांबिकाय।
अग्निमीळ पुरोहितं यज्ञस्य देवमृत्विजम् होतारं रत्नदातमम् अग्निः पूर्वेभिर्षिभिरेड्यो नूतनैरुत स देवो एहमक्षते अग्निना रजिवष्णवत्पोषमेव दिवे दिवे यशसं वीरवत्तमम् अग्नेयज्ञमध्वरं विश्वतः परिपूरसे स इद्देवेषु गच्छति अग्निर्होताग्रविक्रतुः सद्यश्चित्रश्रवस्तमः देवो देवेभिरागमत् यदङ्गदाशुषे त्वमग्नेः भद्रं करिष्यसि तवेत्तत्सत्यमङ्गिरः उपत्वाग्ने दिवे दिवे दोषावस्तर्थिजाभजम् नभो भरन्त एमसि राजन्तमध्वराणां गोपामृतस्य दीदिविं वर्धमानं स्वेदमे स नः पितेव सोनवेग्ने सोपायनो भव स च स्वानस्वस्तये।
The Golden Light by Sri Aurobindo. Sonnets 1930 to 1950. Thy golden light came down into my brain, and the grey rooms of mind sun-touched became a bright reply to wisdom's occult plane, a calm illumination and a flame. Thy golden light came down into my throat, and all my speech is now a tune divine, a paean song of thee, my single note. My words are drunk with the immortal's wine. Thy golden light came down into my heart, smiting my life with thy eternity. Now has it grown a temple where thou art, and all its passions point towards only thee. Thy golden light came down into my feet. My earth is now thy playfield and thy seat. Sonnets 1930 to 1950. The Witness Spirit. I dwell in the Spirit's calm, nothing can move, and watch the actions of thy vast world force, its mighty wings that through infinity move, and the time gallopings of the deathless horse. This mute, stupendous energy that whirls the stars and nebula in its long train, like a huge serpent through my being, curls with its diamond hood of joy and fangs of pain. It rises from the dim inconscient deep, upcoiling through the minds and hearts of men. Then touches on some height of luminous sleep the bliss and splendor of the eternal plain. All this I bear in me, untouched and still assenting to thy all-wise inscrutable will. How they came to Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Pavitra the pure. Destiny had equipped him with the firm determination always to walk straight towards the highest realization in life. From December 1925 to 1926 November, when Sri Aurobindo withdrew and mother came forward, Pavitra had almost a year to prepare himself for surrendering to the divine through the mother. It was easy for him, but not for many of the old associates of Sri Aurobindo. Their habitual clinging was more to Sri Aurobindo than to the mother, and to a human Sri Aurobindo who indulged them by never forcing them to take up a life of discipline and self-surrender. At the beginning, Sri Aurobindo took special precautions that his disciples should not mix with Pavitra or behave during the table talks in too informal a way, for it might shock or disturb him. One disciple later recounted that Sri Aurobindo said to him, "You have lectured about supramental and the life divine to so many people. Now leave this man to me. Do not talk or mix with him at all." So nobody dared to talk to Pavitra except one simple villager who lived just opposite to him in the first room of Rosary House. Naturally, the man had to speak to him about daily necessities, and certainly Sri Aurobindo could not object. This villager was just the right companion for Pavitra at the time. It was out of question for him to discuss anything spiritual with Philip, for he neither knew English well nor had studied any philosophy. Soon they became good friends. This rural Indian without much learning and the Parisian with a scientific education and refined culture, his experience of many countries and contact with people of every kind. Now the villager was good-hearted, but also terribly anti-Christian. And for him, any European was a Christian and therefore an untouchable. Though he liked Pavitra for his modesty and good manners, he resented it when Pavitra offered him something to eat or drink. And he would not allow Pavitra to drink water from his kuja, giving the excuse that his water was old and had insects in it. Still, he could not protest much when Pavitra, as a matter of hygiene, insisted that he put his bedding in the sun, though to him it seemed unnecessary waste of time. His tamasic disposition found no necessity in doing that, but to the Parisian it was extremely important. Thus, the villager gradually began to cultivate the hygienic habits of the city man. On the other hand, the Parisian could not appreciate his companion's peasant way of wearing his dhoti above the knees. As he once said, not protesting, but explaining, a French man would be considered uncivilized if he showed his knees in public. But gradually the Frenchman not only grew accustomed to this, but himself began to adopt the Indian style of dress. Once Sri Aurobindo sent a tomato to the villager to be handed to Philip, who was out giving tuition in the city at the time. Philip was overjoyed to receive it, especially as it was sent by Sri Aurobindo. He prepared a nice drink from it and offered a glassful to his friend. But alas, the orthodox Indian would not touch it, preparation of a Christian, declining on the pretext that he had a cold. About 10 o'clock at night, when practically everyone else was in bed, the villager was often called by his friend to go for a walk to the beach or pier. Another surprise. Aren't these cultured Europeans really mad? What an idea to go for a walk so late as night. But he could not very well avoid it, for he was now a friend of the Frenchman. One full moon night, the Parisian drew his attention to the beautiful moon, which suggested some mystery of bliss. The villager, disconcerted, had to express his ignorance of any such suggestion. The two were intimate now, but their relationship was not to continue much longer. The Indian was constantly getting fever. Sri Aurobindo advised him to go back to his village for a change. He did not want to go, and he was rather upset. He consulted Philip, who succeeded in convincing him to obey the master cheerfully and go with the firm faith that it was for his own good, then to return at the proper time. So he went. 3 years later, he returned in 1928 to find that a great change had come over Arya office. Sri Aurobindo was no longer visible as before. Mother was in sole charge of the sadhaks, of their daily life as well as their sadhana. They no longer had to cook their own food or manage their own affairs. All belonged to one family whose members consulted the mother and did what she told them. The villager found it hard to accept that Sri Aurobindo was no longer easily available. Of course, he wanted to meet his old friend Philip, but Philip was now called Pavitra, the name given to him by Sri Aurobindo, could not be seen without mother's permission. This restriction on his freedom to visit Pavitra was hard for the villager to bear. One day, though, he met him and found, to his delight, that Pavitra was as affectionate and friendly as the Philip he had known before. In a moment the villager forgot the present and went back to the days of their past. He asked Pavitra to prepare him some papaya juice. At last, he had freed himself from the prejudice of untouchability. But the drink he has rejected so easily before was not so easy to have now. Pavitra said that he must ask mother about it. When the papaya drink was offered a few days later, Pavitra had indeed asked the mother, and she had permitted him to prepare it just this once. The physical conditions suffered by Pavitra in his first year are almost unbelievable to us now. At times he would recount them with amusement to compare the austere old days with the easy-going life we all enjoy now. Mother has given comfort and convenience to us all, but previously it was unimaginable. The main reason, of course, was lack of money. Pavitra himself did not have much money when he came. The little he had collected after selling off his things in Japan was practically exhausted by the expenses of his trip to India. So, he had to find a way to maintain himself in Pondicherry. An engineering position would take too much of his time and energy, as would establishing a chemical lab. Besides, he had found his guru, and his path lay clear before him. He needed only to earn enough to keep alive. The easiest prospect was to become a private tutor, and he found such a position in a French family, coaching some children to appear for baccalaureate examination in the colleges here. The amount he was paid was nominal, but sufficient for his simple needs. Pavitra had to pay rent for his room, buy food and clothes and few other necessities. He also had to do his own cooking, for which simplest and cheapest was the main consideration. If there was a cup of coffee and some fried beans, that would suffice for a meal. Or khichdi, a mixture of rice, dal and vegetables boiled together, would save time and simplify the problem. Pavitra's room in Rosary House was veritable godown. It did not have all the windows that are there today. Pavitra once told us with a laugh how even in the daytime, when he sat down to eat, bandicoots would come near to collect their share. At night, when he slept outside on a veranda on a mat, rats would run over him freely, and he got caught only later on. This frugal life went on for a little over 1 year. Then in November 1926, Sri Aurobindo withdrew and Mother took charge of the disciples, dealing personally with their spiritual and material activities. Under her guidance, an organized ashram took shape. Pavitra became her invaluable aid in creating its physical framework. His mastery over material things, his wide experience of life, and his sole surrender to her made him a precious instrument for her work. Meditation, a number of times a day, went on side by side with work. The morning meditation took place in the meditation room upstairs at 7 o'clock. Then Mother would give individual interviews to the disciples who went to her by rotation on different days. These interviews continued up to noon. Next she went to dining room, now present publication department, to distribute food to them all. After the meal, there was again a meditation at 1 p.m. Then mother went to Sri Aurobindo to give him his food. At 3 or 4 o'clock, she would visit sadhaks in their rooms for a few minutes, seeing a few of them each day. From 1927, when she got a car from a brother-in-law of Mr. Patel, she usually went for a ride from 5 to 7. Pavitra would drive. When she came back, she would go to Prosperity to check on the affairs of the stores, and from there come down to distribute the evening soup. The last meditation was at midnight. In this way, the possibility of a divine life on earth began to germinate in miniature form in the ashram. The mother gave herself completely to this task, spending almost every hour of the day with the sadhaks. She reduced her food and sleep to the minimum, almost to the breaking point. Indeed, she almost gave them up. Several times a day, she would go to Sri Aurobindo to serve him his food or acquaint him with what was going on, taking directions from him if necessary. She thus was the link between Sri Aurobindo and the sadhaks who communicated with him through letters which mother carried to and from him. In 1928, the small old houses on the plot adjoining Library House were being bought. They have all been demolished now to make the big courtyard of the Samadhi area. Pavitra was shifted to one of them, a little two-storied house in the center of the small courtyard near mother's first room in meditation house. Pavitra's house had only one small room upstairs with a door facing on an open terrace that led to mother's bathroom. Crossing that terrace, mother would come to Pavitra's room. When she went down to the car for an afternoon drive, or in the evening, when she went to the Prosperity room, she would always pass through Pavitra's room. Descending his staircase, she would walk a few steps across the courtyard, go up the staircase at the foot of the present Samadhi, and pass through Champaklal's or Anilbaran's room in order to enter Prosperity. There she spent a while looking into accounts of the daily expenditure for the garden, kitchen, general stores, and so on. During all these activities, Pavitra followed her like a shadow. Pavitra's life was more and more illumined by the mother. As his intimacy with her grew deeper by sadhana, his importance in the organization of the ashram life became evident, but he never showed any sign of superiority over others. From the beginning, his responsibilities were mainly technical and organizational. Especially for any technical work, he became mother's right-hand instrument. He also handled her foreign correspondence. Pavitra worked with very nominal equipment, whatever was available. For example, He used very simple devices in electrification of Meditation House, the newly bought building in which Sri Aurobindo and mother lived from February 1927. For a polytechnician, the work was nothing, but Pavitra did it carefully. In the ashram, all work was done for the sake of the divine. So it was important to do it well. Gradually, new aspirants arrived. To one of them, mother gave the electrical installation work. Pavitra handed the whole responsibility over to him. When the new man asked for help, Pavitra always gave it cheerfully. But when the man was in an independent mood, Pavitra let him work as freely as he liked. Officially, of course, Pavitra remained in charge according to the mother's wish. Thanks for being with this special program as we celebrate Orwell's birthday. Let all this be an offering to the Agni, to the light, who is in the form of Mother inside us. We offer our pranam to her. Greetings from Auroville. We offer our thanksgiving. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.